No Steph Curry was needed. No Draymond Green needed. They just get a night off. All things good in Warriors land. And speaking of all things good, the future looks very nice. Golden State has not struck out in the draft since James Wiseman. But what should worry you? What shouldn't? What should? Fill in the blank. We're talking about it on today's Locked On Dubs. Golden State 111, Detroit 93. Little post-game show, live edition, starts right now.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, Kolsky, this is becoming a little family tradition. Talking about Golden State Warriors wins. None of them matter, but you may as well win them. That's my motto in life. You know, this may not all matter, but you may as well win. 4-0 are the Golden State Warriors after a 111-93 win. We're going to talk about the just hot shooting out of the gate. That should not worry Golden State Warriors fans whatsoever. Neither should the talent scouting, because it appears they're clicking on all cylinders. But what should worry Golden State Warriors fans? I give my opinion. You counter. Also, Andrew Wiggins has scrimmaged. When's he returning? What does he bring to the table? Is he the secret sauce? We're discussing all this on today's episode. This is Locked On Warriors, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. If you can't watch the entire show or miss a YouTube show here and there, join us wherever you get your audio podcast. We are free and available. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You'd start the season with a big return on FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets. That's guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. All right, so let's talk about this thing. Warriors winners by the math ain't mathin', 18 points today. Brandin Podziemski was knocked out of this one with a little elbow to the face. He looked good before he left. Trayce Jackson-Davis looked outstanding with a double-double, 12 and 10. Jonathan Kuminga, 12 points. I mentioned Podziemski. I didn't give you his stats. He had 12, and Moses Moody had 14. So there is 60 points right there from the draft picks in, 3 of the last 4 drafts, whatever it may be. So let's discuss this thing right now. The Warriors and their scouting has been very good, because I'm going to give you some of these names after you react to what I'm saying, but I'm going to give you some of the names that the other teams around the NBA drafted after and before these players. And it seems like the Warriors front office kind of knows what they're doing, man. Welcome.
Yeah. Obviously the front office has had some transition over the course of that time, but if we look at the group as a whole, it's largely the same. And yes, they've done a good job. And frankly, that goes back a ways. Listen, people are always going to say I'm carrying water for the Warriors, which is funny because I've never received a paycheck from the Golden State Warriors. But, people will point to the Jacob Evanses of the world and say,
"Shut up, Bearcats."
I picked him for a reason, and say, hey, they've made a lot of mistakes. And fair enough. Like, Jacob Evans was a bust, and he's not the only one that they took at the end of the draft. But the only really glaring draft error for me is the obvious one in James Wiseman, and that was bad. But it wasn't, I don't think, poor process. You see teams far too often go outside the box to make a terrible pick. And those are the ones that I think are really concerning. The Johnny Flynn picks, if you will. The Warriors have always had, since Lacob took over, have had a pretty sound process for how they do this thing. And more often than not, whether you're looking at all the way back to Draymond Green or more recently, the Jordan Pooles, the Trayce Jackson-Davis and Moody and Kuminga, like, they've been pretty good at finding guys in the draft. And I think, given what their draft position has often been, kind of great. That being said, there are always going to be errors because it is just not 100% game. It's not like the best GMs have 100% draft hit rate. That doesn't exist.
No, but
So
they're hitting 66. They're hitting 70%. I mean, let me run through
that's
some
right.
of these real quick because Trayce Jackson-Davis, let's start there. He's about as good as a 57th pick as you'll ever see. I mean, came into the league ready to go. Even if he's never all-star material, he's going to be a solid player in this league for a long time. And
Yeah,
the
your
fact
boy
that he
Quentin
was
Post
NBA
wishes.
ready because of his age, and they were
Yeah.
able to get him there at 57th. I mean, that's good talent evaluation right there. I mean, look at Pods. He went 4 picks after Kobe Buffkin, 2 picks after Jalen Hood-Schifino. I know there's a lot of time before we can write someone off as a bust or whatnot, but at this current moment, that looks to be a good pick. Kuminga drafted right before Davion Mitchell. Good pick there. Smart move. Moody was drafted after Book Knight and Chris Duarte. I like that move there. So it just seems like Golden State, the reason they're in the position that they are, and that is destroying the Detroit Pistons, who had, higher picks than Cade Cunningham and Jay Ivey. They're going head to head tonight, and the Warriors' young guys look to be just as good as any of them.
Yeah, and that's with a lot less game experience, generally speaking, than those guys. I think tonight's an important night. Seeing all those young guys play well together. Look, that lineup, there are going to be nights, I guarantee it, end of a long road trip, whatever it is. There's going to be nights where Steve Kerr gives Steph and Draymond a night off. And what does it look like? And if it looks like that, which is they played hard from the first whistle down to Reese Beekman finishing things. They played hard tonight, and it's a preseason game. You don't get a lot of 48-minute efforts in preseason. You just don't. And I think for the young guys to do it, and it helps that Kuminga and Moody are far enough into this thing now that they were going to get minutes, right? There was no question that they were going to get minutes this year. But nevertheless, having all of these high quality, capable NBA level players in camp competing for spots, essentially, I think it ups the level. I think it creates a night like tonight where the big names sit out and everybody does their share. And by the way, that scenario I just described, I think a lot of times with young guys, especially guys looking for extra playing time, can lead to some selfishness. And we didn't see that at all tonight. I mean, no. Kuminga was so awesome tonight. I just, that to me is a picture of what he can be.
Then respond to James Dean on the screen. Kuminga looked lost tonight.
I don't know what James Dean was watching.
I thought he looked great. And now that he's hitting his threes, I mean, he's got to be over 50% from 3-point range this preseason. I don't even think it's close.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know.
3 of 5 tonight.
To that. Yeah. I mean, I don't know how much he played in the second half. Not a ton, but I thought he looked awesome. I thought he crashed the boards, even though, the rebound total is not, it's 2. I thought he was aggressive defensively. I thought he was crashing the boards, which matters. I thought he created a couple rebounds for other people, which matters. And just assertive offensively as well. And generally hitting, 4 for 9, 3 of 5 from 3. Not his best night, but like involved in the whole game, passed the ball. I love what I saw from Kuminga tonight. And you said Podziemski looked good before he left. Moody, again, not a great shooting night for Moody, but he continues to attack. He continues to look more and more comfortable. He hit 1 3 coming off a screen off that inbounds. That just, the lack of hesitation is really encouraging to me. Like, this is getting these guys to where they feel comfortable doing what they've done throughout their basketball careers at the NBA level matters, even if it's a preseason game. And I don't know. I just think there's a lot here. There's a lot here on this roster, and I'm interested to see what it looks like once the bullets count.
So Kuminga had the 12. Trayce Jackson-Davis, as I mentioned, had the 12. Let's transition over to some Moody and Podziemski talk. I mean, Moody, when you're looking statistically, he was under just over 33% at 5 of 14 from the floor, 2 of 5 from deep. Had 2 rebounds, 3 assists, and a steal. Was a +6 in his 25 minutes, but he attacks, man. He's not hesitating like he did in the past. I think you just mentioned the 3 off the inbounds. That was off the screen, right? Off the screen, Just caught it, stroked it, ripped it.
Yeah, just curled into the corner and got it off really quickly. It wasn't a great screen. The defense was not that far behind him. And yeah, again, just looks really comfortable. I really think that the best version of this team has Kuminga and Moody as major contributors, because they're the guys whose ceilings are still somewhat undefined, right? Is Moses Moody, based on what we've seen in his NBA career and games that count, a better player than Buddy Hield? It'd probably be tough to say that. I don't know that he is. I mean, he plays both ends, but Buddy is a legit flamethrower, right? He's got pelts on the wall, so to speak. He's done the thing. I think Moody's ceiling is a lot higher than what Buddy Hield is, and I believe we can see that sooner than later if he's getting those minutes. This is not to say you don't want Buddy Hield on the squad or that Buddy Hield won't contribute this year. I think he will. I just think the more I watch, and I've always felt this way, full disclosure, I was on the floor at, God, was it Chase Center already? Or was it like last days of Oracle? It might have been last days of Oracle. I was on the floor at whichever arena with the Jumbotron. I don't know if it was the giant one, on the floor showing the draft for this draft, doing a radio show live during the time when Kuminga and Moody were drafted.
That was Chase.
It was Chase. And I was, this shows you how wrecked my memory is. I was saying, man, the dream scenario is if they could somehow get Kuminga and Moody before the draft started. And I was a very excited person when this happened. And I believed in both of these guys since the day they were drafted. And in fact, before that. Yeah.
And you wouldn't go back and really change much of anything, would you?
I wouldn't, except how much playing time they've gotten. And I continue to believe that these guys have an opportunity to be difference makers. I think Kuminga is an all-star level player, and I think Moody is, the sort of guy that fans want to be an all-star, if you know what I mean. I don't know that he'll ever make an all-star team. There's a lot of good guards and wings in this league, but I think he's going to be the level of player that it makes Warrior fans angry that he's not an all-star. And the sooner you can, the whole dream was always to marry that future with a present that's good enough to win with Steph Curry. And I think this is the year where that might be possible. It makes me pretty excited.
That 2 timeline, it's coming up again. I thought we were away from the 2 timeline, but it's here to stay. Talking more about this game, dude, we haven't even got into the shooting yet. Golden State is just lethal from deep. They started off the game 11 of 13. 11 of their first 13 threes they hit. That shouldn't scare you whatsoever. The future and some of the players we talked about, assuming they sign them long term, that shouldn't scare you. But what should? There's a glaring weakness on this team, in my opinion, that we saw Detroit expose a little. We're debating that and how the Warriors can fix it coming up next. So let's tell you about one of our sponsors, FanDuel. Wonderful sportsbook on an NFL Sunday. You got to hop on FanDuel and find out everything it offers. NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, which is America's #1 sportsbook, I may add. So if you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you feel like you can predict what's going to happen. The next play is going to be a rush. It's going to be a first down. It's going to be, you're watching a basketball game since this is a basketball show. Next shot is going to be a missed 3. You're getting plus 300 odds for that. You can do that live in the middle of the game where you check the stats, view the live play-by-play, and place your bets. Makes everything easy. And you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets. That's guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. You can do it on FanDuel.com. And I hope you got in on the Golden State Warriors tonight. They were minus 1.5 against the Pistons. Keep points. Vegas, Golden State keeps covering. We're going to be rich if we keep it up, and we're going to be rich because of FanDuel.com. right, so what should not worry you about the Golden State Warriors are the four guys we just mentioned: Moses Moody, Jonathan Kuminga, Brandin, Podziemski, and Trayce Jackson-Davis. We didn't talk a ton about Podziemski. The turnovers, a little alarming, had 5 more today. There was one where he got in the lane. He would have had like a 5-foot runner, and instead he tried to lob it up for a dunk into traffic. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, I know he wants to be a facilitator, and he's talked about it a lot this offseason. But that to me is where you just go up with the 5-footer. Don't even do the floater. Don't give me the hook shot. Just plant your feet, knock it down. He's shown the capability to do that. But he was efficient aside from the turnovers: 4 of 7, 2 of 3 from deep. And then we mentioned Trayce Jackson-Davis with the double-double, 12 and 10, also 3 blocks. That shouldn't scare you. Shooting.
But
This
Chuck,
team's
hold
gonna shoot
on.
all season
Hold
long.
on, though. Hold on. The Podziemski thing, like, you're right about the turnovers, but isn't it just very Warriors? Like, that's a very Warriors turnover, even though it's the one you don't want.
And he's 21, man. That's what doesn't worry me about Podziemski.
They're all going to be fine. They're all going to be fine. But I don't know how you get. It's like, listen, I occasionally get frustrated at my house, largely with myself, and raise my voice. My son, who's 5, has now started raising his voice in a very similar way. And it's very upsetting, and he should not be doing it. And it makes me very, very angry. And yet, how can I really get mad at him? My point is, how do you stop Podziemski from those sorts of turnovers when Steph Curry and Draymond Green continue to do them? Is a problem that Steve Kerr is going to have to deal with, and I don't envy it.
You are what you watch, right? And you talk about how reps make everything better. Well, when the reps you're taking, you're sitting next to guys that do make careless mistakes.
Yeah, mom and dad keep doing it. Why do I have to stop?
Yeah, that was always my go-to in life. We got a Moses Moody, a Sean Livingston 2.0 in the chat from B40. We got Jason Mullins, James Dean, JC, everyone in there. Thanks for joining us. And for those of you on the audio podcast in the morning, no more name dropping. The show rolls on. Let's get to another topic. The Warriors need blank, because I mentioned everything and I didn't really talk about the shooting because they went 18 of 39 from 3, but they started off 11 of 13. Buddy Hield hit 4 more of them. Lindy Waters hit 3 more of them. And then we talked about Kuminga hitting 3, who was kind of a wild card from downtown, and he appears to be able to do that. That shouldn't worry you. What should? Fill in the blank. And I want to hear your comments on this. To me, it's interior defense. I thought Jalen Duran, who is a physical specimen, and he would be nice on the Warriors. I thought he kind of ate the Warriors up. His final numbers were 7 of 8 from the floor, 9 rebounds, 3 block shots, 3 assists. In 23 minutes, he had 14 points. In fact, when he was on the floor, they were a +4.
Did you say he
despite losing by 18 points, man? So that, to me, just the bigs and in the interior, I think Golden State Warriors need someone like a Robert Williams, a Time Lord if he's healthy. They need to make some sort of acquisition later on in the season to shore that up. They don't need the scoring. I mean, they could use the scoring. They don't need the scoring. They just need a stopper down low, and Trayce does his part, man. He's good for his size, but they need more. That's my opinion.
Well, okay. So first, let me respond to that. Duran is exactly what they need, right? I mean, he's obviously not available. That's the dream. Jalen Duran is the dream, because those 14 points, first of all, kind of ate them up is a drastic understatement. He just was at a friggin' sushi buffet while he was in there, but virtually nothing was run for him, right? That's all just garbage man, big guy buckets. 7 for 8, you said? It's all just running the floor and being big and strong and athletic. And yeah, obviously he was a force defensively as well. That'd be great. He's not available. I don't know if you know this. Robert Williams is Trayce Jackson-Davis's size. So He doesn't move me.
The more the merrier. Get him on over here.
But Kevon Looney's that size too. You know, I don't think they need another undersized center. If there was somebody, if Miles Turner was, maybe Indiana goes in the tank. Who knows? If there was a way to get Miles Turner, but what would I give up for Miles Turner on the Warriors right now? It would probably have to be a draft pick, because I'm not giving up any of the young guys we just talked about to get Miles Turner. Are you?
No, I mean, you could flirt with
hell.
Wiggins.
I mean, I would give up Trayce.
Kuminga.
I would give up Wiggins and Trayce. You want Wiggins and Trayce for Miles Turner? My guess is they don't. Maybe Wiggins, Trayce, and a first rounder. Even that, my guess is not enough. So I just don't know that the guy is there. I hear you. We've wanted interior defense and size specifically on this. It's because it's not defense. Draymond and Looney and Trayce will get the job done, provided they can stay healthy playing against 7-footers for 80 games. The need is size, and it's been a need since Bogut left. But I just don't see a good way to fill it is my issue with that. For me, what the Warriors need, I think I'd answer it the same way as you. But that's a different question than what scares me. And I guess I could reframe it.
What's your deepest fear? Is it that you're inadequate?
Well, of course. But regarding the Warriors, there's two things. And one is, I think, natural to anybody and every team, but maybe of particular concern with a team built around two of the older stars in the league, if you want to cast Draymond that way, and that's health. If Steph or Draymond really gets hurt, it's over. Forget it. You know, rest everybody else and you know, see if Reese Beekman can play and get the best draft pick you can. Maybe you can luck yourself into the what's his face, Cooper Fleck. So health is a concern, but also this team has been prone to insanity, and it's not just Draymond. It's like the whole. I'll say this. I'm sure there are very few Warriors fans who would give back the Kevin Durant experience and return those championships, right? But whether you want to say it started with Draymond in the playoffs the year before, or it started with Durant coming here, or whatever, that is the time when the Warriors went from a cute upstart single-time champion to like one Goliath. Of the a Goliath, but also then from that point, like it's been nuts, man. It's been a whirlwind of insanity.
Dude, they won a championship with a team that no one believed in 21-22. They were 18-2, and people are like, they're not winning a title. Like, their odds are like 6th.
That's part of the insanity. Right? I mean, it's all these things. It's that win. It's what happened, frankly. Andrew Wiggins' entire experience here has been utterly bizarre, right? A guy that nobody could motivate as the number 1 overall pick for years in Minnesota, just happily scoring 22 points a night and not mattering, all of a sudden becomes the second best player on a title team, a key contributor in an NBA Finals victory, and then proceeds to like disappear for a variety of reasons. And I'm not saying anything about Andrew Wiggins, but like it's all bizarre. It's all been bizarre. Jordan Poole, his ascent and then subsequent disaster. And I know that part does involve Draymond. Draymond's been at the center of a lot of the craziness, but my point is it's all been very nuts. And I don't think there's any reason to believe that's going to stop entirely, but you hope it stays at a level of nuts that's manageable rather than what it's been the last couple seasons.
You know, it'd be really nuts if the Warriors went out this year, won a title with a 12 or 13 man rotation, whatever they're running around right now, and they're adding in Andrew Wiggins, the fold. How's he going to fit into the mix? We're both very high on Jonathan Kuminga. We're even higher on, or not higher on Moody than Kuminga, at least in my opinion, but higher on Moody than we've been in recent weeks with the way he's played in this preseason. Where does Andrew Wiggins fit in? How's he going to help this team? We're discussing it coming up on Locked On Warriors. And that's where the conversation continues. Golden State's 4-0 in the preseason. Does that mean anything to you? No, but it's more so the way that they've played and the guys that have played very well. And it's been consistently Jonathan Kuminga. He's looked good pretty much every night, especially from three-point land, 3 of 5 again today. I think Trayce Jackson-Davis looks like he's taken a step defensively. Moody has taken many steps. That has to excite you. Winning a game over, sure, it's the Pistons. Here's the good news, man. If Steph Curry does ever go out, like you said, they're still going to be better than the Detroit Pistons. I think we can, at this point, we can Sharpie that in there. They're going to struggle again this year. I'm a firm believer of that. I'm asking you this, though. Andrew Wiggins, because he's coming back to the fold here soon. He scrimmaged. So could he play in the final three preseason games? No, two. Final two.
I think I heard Bob Fitzgerald say tonight that he will not play in the next one. Okay. So maybe that gives him a chance to play one preseason. But
how much does that worry you for him? Not just for the Warriors, because I mean, Kuminga's coming in the way that he's playing right now. It's at some point, like, you got to give the guy who's available and who's played the entire preseason the nod once you start the season to lose that job. No,
I can't fathom how you could not start Kuminga on opening night. So whether Wiggins is also a factor, I doubt he will be, given and frankly the slow roll with the apparently he had like a bad respiratory thing, so just like he's got to get his wind back. You know, it's hard. It'd be hard for him to suddenly start night one of an NBA season off of 0 or 1 preseason games. I think that would be tough for anybody physically. But it's kind of just a nice excuse, isn't it? Like, if Wiggins comes off the bench and shows you he belongs in the starting lineup, more power to him. But you haven't seen anything to suggest that he'd be a better option than the Jonathan Kuminga we've gotten so far this preseason in a couple of years.
I would say 22-23, right? Yeah. 22-23, when he was available, he was good. He was good. People
he
forget
was better than last year. He wasn't great.
He was good. I mean, he came back for that Kings series and immediately made an impact, and I thought he was good.
Yeah, but not great. Not as good as the Jonathan Kuminga we've watched in the preseason, right? I mean, just not as dynamic. Maybe, I think there are probably some things just as a veteran that he understands better than Kuminga still, but you're going to have to live with that. I just don't see how you keep Kuminga on the bench. And the hope is, again, you're hoping you can get Wiggins back to what you've seen from him, right? The arrow's pointed up for Jonathan Kuminga, period. He's only going to get better the more you see of him. It's got to be him. Now, could Wiggins find his way into the starting lineup as well? I don't see why not. There are plenty of ways to do that. But Kuminga's a starter for me, whether it's the 3 or the 4. I don't particularly care.
What's the extension date? Is it October 24th?
It's after the tip-off. I'm not sure exactly when, but yeah, it's around then. We'd have to Google it to see this.
What do you think about that? In terms of if Moody and Kuminga both don't get extended, does that trigger you? Does that make you think anything otherwise?
Let's start with Moody, because that one's easier for me. I would try to get it done if I was the Warriors, because I think he's going to play himself into a lot more money than you could get now.
And the conspiracists out there with the tinfoil hats are probably saying that that's why Steve Kerr, maybe haven't played him as much over the years, is get him at a value and then slide him into the starting lineup once Clay's gone.
Right. I mean, that would be worth getting into if it wasn't so plain why Steve Kerr hadn't played him. We all understand who Steve Kerr is and how he wants to do things, and we know why he hasn't played these guys, even if we might disagree with it. And it has nothing to do with money. But I don't know that Moody would want to sign a deal, right? Unless they're blowing his socks off. I don't know that Moody wants to sign the sort of deal that he's earned because he hasn't had the opportunity to earn all that much. Kuminga is a tough one because the only reason I can think of, as good as he's been for the last, calendar year, maybe, if even that, if he's asking for the max, which is fair of him to do given what's happened around the league, I don't know that there's any reason for the Warriors to do that unless they think he'll be upset.
Because you got the bird rights, and that's important here.
Well, specifically, he's a restricted, easy for me to say, free agent at the end of the year, which means they can
match
any offer he gets. And it won't be hard. If I'm Kuminga, I'm not too upset. It's not going to be that hard for me to earn a max offer from some trash team in the league if I'm good this year. If I'm even pretty good, right? He doesn't have to be mind-blowing to get a max from somebody. Might he lose a few bucks? If he gets the public max as opposed to the Warriors max, I guess so. Maybe the Warriors won't want to go that route by the end of the season. They can always max him out at the end of the year. But I'm just not sure. I'm not sure it hugely benefits either side in either situation to sign this deal, unless it's the Warriors trying to sign Moody right now. Because if I was them, especially after this preseason, I'm trying to get him before somebody comes in and gives him an offer that's kind of prohibitive. That would be my concern, is if Kuminga earns a max and Moody is really good and somebody gets creative, I don't know. That's frightening. Do you remember when Daryl Morey was going around offering people poison pill contracts so their teams couldn't match in free agency? I'd hate to see something like that happen with Moses Moody. I will say that.
It's like the collegiate game when you're an American Athletic or a Conference USA school and you land someone that's got a lot of talent, and next thing you know, a Georgia, or someone comes in and
transfer portal
throws that offer. At that point, they're just taking them regardless. They're just coming in and taking them. But back in the day, there may have been with the national letter of intent that, it was a different story. And that's why you got to get them on them first. You got to get them while the stock's low. And right now, especially around the league, I don't think Moses Moody has an extremely valuable stock, and you could probably give him a pretty reasonable deal there. Final thoughts from today. One, can we all agree that we're going to be a way better team than last year? Or is that just me coming in from Mfleck is him? Mfleck is him, and I can agree with that. I think they're going to be better. More numbers.
Yeah, listen, they weren't that bad last year. It's easy to forget because they didn't go to the playoffs, but they weren't that far off from being a 5th or 6th seed wins-wise, and I think we could easily imagine those wins being made up if Draymond hadn't missed 30 games or something like that. So dramatically better, I don't know. I think the results will overall be a little better. Yeah, I don't know if they're a lot better, but they're definitely more interesting and fun, which is good.
My final thoughts, DeAnthony Melton, I thought he was pretty good at distributing the basketball tonight. Final numbers for him, assist-wise, he had 7 of them. I think he had 3 lobs to Trayce, who threw him down. So that was a nice connection to see. And then my last thought that I really hadn't mentioned tonight, I feel like I've gotten into kind of everything from this game, was that unreal sequence that Trayce Jackson-Davis had defensively where he blocked 2 of them, then went up the floor to Pods, who banged in a 3. Chase Center was rocking. And that was that, as the Warriors win 111-93. We're going to do these after every single game this season. We got to get them in under 35 minutes. So we got 40 seconds to say our goodbyes. Like and subscribe to the show. Audio podcast, we're there in the morning. Leave us a review because, as we mentioned on the last show, we are the lowest rated Locked On Podcast Network show. And we're trying to get it up. We're doing our part here for you after the game. So give us the thumbs up. Show us the love. We appreciate you all for joining. And one more thing from Mfleck is him very quickly. Do we trade Kuminga midseason if he is not showing up? That is another question for another day. We will talk about that later this week. But this is Locked On Warriors, free and available wherever you get your audio podcasts. Peace, everyone.